G7 leaders turned their attention to migration on the second day of the summit in Italy. The leaders plan to discuss ways to combat human trafficking and increase investment in countries from where migrants start out. This was a crucial issue for the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, who has been pushing Europe to help her curb illegal flows from Africa and has launched a flagship plan to boost development in the continent. This to tackle the root cause of the departures. Furthermore, G7 leaders hardened their stance against China, according to a draft summit statement warning Beijing to stop sending weapon components to Russia and play by the rules on trade. China has been a key focus of the Group of Seven talks in Puglia amid soaring trade relations between Beijing and the West and concerns that its supplies of equipment to Moscow are fueling Russia's war in Ukraine. The Group of Seven also took aim at what it called dangerous incursions by China in the contested South China Sea, where worries of a military escalation between Beijing and its neighbors are rising. Meanwhile, Pope Francis addressed the G7 leaders on the perils of artificial intelligence. He said no innovation is neutral and it all must be directed for the good of human beings. He also called for a ban on lethal autonomous weapons. Pope Francis is the first head of the Catholic Church to take part in the meeting of rich nations. On the sidelines of G7 summit, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met Pope Francis and said that the Vatican would take part in international summit on Ukraine in Switzerland. Pope will also hold bilaterals with the leaders of the United States, India, Turkey and Brazil, among others.
Okay, again. God bless you. Thank you very much.
Now, the spouses of G7 leaders, including Yuko Kishida and Heiko von der Leyen, visited the Italian town of Alberobello while the summit is underway. The wife of Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and husband of European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen were also joined by the wife of European Council President Charles Michel. The town, composed of hundreds of conical dwellings known as Trulli, is declared by UNESCO as World Heritage. The spouses were greeted by locals as they walked through the streets surrounded by photographers and security. Many of the G7 leaders, including US President Joe Biden, will leave Italy late on Friday. Now, the second day of the G7 summit coincided with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz's birthday, and the G7 leaders sang happy birthday to him.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you, Olaf. Happy birthday to you. Yeah. Yeah, we did. Yeah. Happy birthday. We had a helicopter. Yeah.
We did sing for him.
Oh, yeah. As soon as it hit.
Over to diplomacy now. In his first foreign visit after assuming office as the Prime Minister of India for the third consecutive term, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also is attending the 50th edition of the G7 meeting in Italy. After his arrival, Prime Minister Narendra Modi first met French President Emmanuel Macron on the sidelines of the G7 summit. The two leaders reviewed the India-France relations and discussed cooperation in defence, nuclear, space and connectivity. They agreed to further intensify strategic defence cooperation with increased focus on Make in India. Then Prime Minister Modi held bilateral talks with UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. The two leaders greeted each other with a warm hug, and Prime Minister Modi reaffirmed his commitment to further strengthen the India-UK strategic partnership. Prime Minister Modi then met Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The two leaders reviewed bilateral relationship and exchanged views on situation in Ukraine. Prime Minister Modi conveyed that India continues to encourage peaceful resolution of the conflict through dialogue and diplomacy. Prime Minister Modi further held bilateral talks with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, marking their second meeting after Meloni's visit to India back in March last year. Now, India is attending the summit as an outreach country, focusing on significant global issues impacting both the global south and the world at large. Moreover, Prime Minister Modi also addressed the outreach session on artificial intelligence, energy, Africa and the Mediterranean at the G7 summit. Prime Minister Modi emphasized that AI technology should be aimed at fostering progress and well-being of all. He underlined that with this broader objective in mind, India was fostering international collaboration as a founding member of Global Partnership for AI. Now, to know what's happening on the ground in G7, Valentina Di Donato reports for us from Puglia in Italy.
Well, yesterday, two major deals were reached, with the G7 leaders agreeing on loaning Ukraine $50 billion. Biden and Zelensky also signed a 10-year bilateral security agreement to ensure help to Kiev to defend against Russia's invasion. U.S. President Biden said, "We are not backing down. In fact, we are standing together against this illegal aggression." This is certainly a major win for President Biden ahead of the upcoming U.S. elections, but it is also a powerful sign that the G7 is still aligned despite the recent wave of the right in Europe.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.